Weird Science
is the revolution.
Web of Spider-Man #1. Usually I'll go into the credits at this point, but this has multiple creative teams. It's an anthology book done in a very odd way. It's a very odd book, but in the meantime, usually the Marvel stuff I end up doing with other people. Matt usually does something like this with me on our podcast, and then I end up taking what we say on the podcast and put it up in a video form. And usually I do cut some things out, make it a little tighter. When me and Matt talked about this on our podcast, that comes out this coming Saturday, by the way, we talked an hour about this issue. That's not going to work. And really a lot of that was us being very confused, trying to go through each of these stories. So I figured I'd come on here, tighten the ship a little, and give you an overall feeling, an overall kind of reaction to this. But I will talk about the individual things, but in a quicker, more concise way. But what I can tell you right away is this is a book that is more of a glorified previews catalog that they're charging $8 for, and that's ridiculous. They do try to set it up with almost like the host being Madam Web. Welcome to the issue. I'm going to show you some crazy things that are going to happen. Kind of lose that right away just to get into random things in these books. And so what you're going to get with each of these, there's not wow moments for the most part. It doesn't feel like it's trying to show newer readers why they should read these issues. And if you're already reading them, I don't know that you're going to need this anyway or want it. And so by the end, if you sit there, you could go, glass half full, glass half empty. At one point, you could say, oh my God, they're charging $8 for something that is not going to be that important. Once we get to these stories, we're sure to repeat things and whatnot. But in the meantime, you could also look at it the other way. They're giving you a book for $8 that can actually show you why you'll be saving a lot of money in 2024, because these stories stink, is what I'm going to tell you. There's some better than others, but overall, there is nothing here that I read this. And when I was reading it, when I was reviewing it on the podcast, that I said, oh my God, people have to see this. And usually when you get things like this, yeah, not everything might hit, but you're going to get that one thing. And then you start debating, is it worth it for that one thing? Is it worth it for those two things? This doesn't have anything. There are no wow moments. And the idea that it really feels like these are just, hey, grab me pages 6, 7, and 8 from that Miles Morales. Grab me pages 2, 3, and 4 from that. Doesn't feel like there's rhyme or reason or that this is anything that is actually even exclusive kind of to this, except maybe the first story. And I'll go through these real quick. You end up getting a couple Zeb Wells things. The first one is Zeb Wells and John Romita Jr., and it's an epilogue to the gang war. The gang war that already had an epilogue, and the gang war that ended a couple weeks ago. I thought this was the future of what happens, but again, that was still 2024, so I guess the small print. But what this shows, and remember at the end of Gang War, Tombstone ended up being upset. Oh no, I'm going to be running New York City, but everybody's going to keep yelling at me that I teamed up with Spider-Man. Now, in that, it really feels like if you just sit back and think about it, he's more worried about people talking crap. Like people making fun, like he's there at the supermarket and they're like, hey, there's Tombstone. I heard you were there with the Spider-Mans. Because really it's Tombstone. And if you say anything bad about him, he's going to kill you anyway. And what does it matter? Because then all he has to say back is, oh, yeah. Didn't you see I double crossed him? I was using him, done and done. So I think that's why we get this, to show you in the meantime, Spider-Man is actually going to take advantage of this. And he's going to keep showing up when Tombstone's guys are doing deals with, say, the Mafia for a bunch of guns, and he'll show up and wave from the rafters. Yoo-hoo, I'm up here. And when you get this, the big play of this at the end, to me, is that Spider-Man, after he stops this whole gun running thing, he takes truckloads and all these, and throws guns into the river. I don't know that's how you dispose of things. I really don't think that's what you do, but he does it. He throws them in. I don't know if that is something that is good for the environment, but he ends up throwing all the guns in the river, and Tombstone's, I'm going to kill him, just like he did at the end of Gang War proper. So you don't really get much of anything, though in this little snippet deal, it's better John Romita art than we've gotten in the last couple issues that he's done. But again, did we need that? No. but I'm not mad about it. Then we go to Miles Morales, Cody Ziegler, and Eleonora Carlini. And I thought maybe we'd get some Rabble stuff. That seemed to be the big push. And granted, I'm not reading the Miles book. I read the Miles tie-ins to Gang War. They didn't convince me to read the Miles book going forward. I was hoping this would. And I read it, and all of a sudden it's, Hightail? And you're like, okay, that's from issues before. We're dealing with Cape Killer stuff that feels a little odd after the Fisk Law is taken down. And by the end, you end up doing things here that I don't think somebody that's new to the book is going to get excited to go and read it. But maybe readers of the book will be like, oh, cool. We'll get Hightail and the vampire stuff. Now, it looks like it could tie in to, say, a blood hunt, but it doesn't really say that, so I don't know. And so by the end, I learned that I really don't need to read the Miles Morales book. So we'll then go forward then to the next story, which is Steve Fox, and he's on this a lot, which, again, it's nonsense. Spider-Woman, Steve Fox, Ig Guerrera. If you are reading Spider-Woman this week, we ended up having Spider-Boy go in there, and it's like the worst of everything for most people. I like Spider-Boy, but I didn't love the issue. But even then, this is so quick that in that issue, at the end, you see that Spider-Woman is going off to San Francisco. She wants to go somewhere where she can bust in some Hydra heads because, anytime she shows up, Hydra is soon to follow. No matter what, if they're not even a big thing anymore, they're going to be there. And they're there in San Francisco. A weird play where she's ripping out the tooth that's a cyanide deal. Like, it's really odd, doesn't work for me. But then finds out, oh no, there's some knockoff Avengers here in San Francisco. How can I get my groove back with them here? And they're like, okay, see this and Spider-Woman stuff. And I'm like, I don't even know what you just showed me, and it looks pretty lame. So there you go again. It's convinced me I may not need to go see that. So then we go back to the Amazing Spider-Man with Zeb Wells, but this time it is with our man, Ed McGuinness. And it's one of those things. I love Ed McGuinness art, and I love the Ed McGuinness art here, though he has to end up dealing with the Insidious Six, and that was the Dark Web stuff, the Wreck Rap, all that tied into that. And it is the Grave Goblin, which I love the design. It really looks like it could be like a Garbage Pail Kid, like a playing card type deal. And also dealing with Norman Osborn here going around in the Gold Goblin costume. But then the real play here, and maybe this could be a wow moment, but it looks like they're showing, oh no, Norman's going to end up being the Goblin again. But we kind of know that if you're reading The Amazing Spider-Man, you know that. But maybe somebody tuning in here like, oh man, yeah, I've been waiting for this. So that might be the biggest wow moment. Though it's kind of a lame story and then kind of ties in because what Norman does is grabs the Grave Goblin and he's going to take him back to, what everybody loves, the Limbo Embassy, with Madeline Pryor. And we know that if you are reading, I say we know, but you have Ben Reilly who's in prison there. So that ends up kind of tying in to where we go from there. But it's not the next story because that would make too much sense. But you end up again. In my mind, this Limbo Embassy, if this was such a big thing, and it just dawned on me now, like, why didn't you have that involved with more in the gang war, things like that? It's just nonsense. Nobody cares. It pops up when it pops up, and here we go, because after this next, we're going to have to get back to it to get Ben Reilly out of there. But the next story is actually a setup for a brand new book. So this really should be something you could read and say, oh my God, I like what's going on here. I understand. I go. And it is the Spider-Gwen, the Ghost Spider book by Stephanie Phillips with art by Eric Gatzber. And it just makes you think like, yeah, I know that most people will be rolling their eyes anyway, that there's a new Spider-Gwen, Ghost Spider deal, all this. It all rolls. The thing is, these books they just jumble in my mind. I don't mind Stephanie Phillips. I always read a #1 issue by her, even though on the side, something that I usually don't bring up, but came up in a comment a little bit ago. The idea that if you know or saw her on social media and she ended up attacking a site and a reviewer because she said they should be held accountable because they ended up saying that her and her creative team on Harley Quinn, that they didn't care about the issue. And how dare this damn reviewer, this and that, and got really on her, soapbox. And
how dare
as
you?
I know personally, kind of lied about some things because they're talking about Weird Science, talking about us, and Sus Gabe in particular. So I know all about all that, but still, you don't really hear me centering on that much. I wanted to bring it up here because it was brought up the last couple weeks, but I usually still give her issues their fair shot, and I sometimes like what she writes, but I don't know that I'm interested in Spider-Gwen enough to be like, oh my God, I got to go read this. And it's a weird, disjointed little preview where you end up having such trash talk by Gwen as she's fighting these birds after mentioning the Alfred Hitchcock movie, The Birds. Polly won a spider web? That might be the best line in this whole damn thing, and it's terrible, but you also get the Time Variance Authority. It's going to be a bunch of wacky things in that, but like I said, it would really have to amaze me here for me to say, oh my God, I can't wait for this. It didn't amaze me, so I'm not saying that. The next deal is when we go to Chasm, or Chasm, as some people say, and you have Steve Fox, who's going to have a Ben Reilly Kane book coming out, and he's going to separate it here, and this first part is the Ben Reilly Chasm stuff. So when we get to that, really all this is to get Ben Reilly out of the limbo prison, the limbo embassy. And it's done in such a way that you realize there was never a plan. Nobody cares. And they just want it to end because Madeline Pryor, she looks crazy. I mean, people are going to end up upset because it is Steve Fox writing, Greg Land doing the pencils on this, and the Kane deal. She looks kind of sexed up. All right. That's his thing. But when you get to the story, it ends up having lame situations and jokes just for Ben to escape on his own. And then when you end up having Havoc say to Madeline Pryor, hey, what's going on? Shouldn't we go get that Ben Reilly? And she says, no, I don't really like being a prison warden. Let him go. Let the boy walk, is what she says, and just lets him go. That's it. So basically, you just had us read through a thing that just shows me that it never was anything that anybody cared about, and you never had a plan. Just get him out of there. Though it kind of goes against, and you could have probably played something up better in the Kane story. But we don't get the Kane story next because, they don't know what they're doing. Because then we go to the Spectacular Spider-Man, or Spider-Men. And that is by Greg Weisman and Joey Vasquez. If you are in the know and you're reading some things, this first issue of this came out like last week. So we're previewing stuff for the second arc of this. So this isn't anything that's going to happen in the next 4 or 5 issues. This is just setting up pretty much a villain that we don't really get anything about, and whatever will be reiterated when we get to it, but in the, say, issue 6 or 7 down the line. But what you get here is why I was just driven insane by that first issue, that people did attack me about it and saying, oh man, this issue was good, you're a jerk. One guy actually just said pretty much I was an a-hole because I didn't like the first issue because I said it was too jokey, it was too busy referencing things, and it was too busy making Peter look like a moron. Guess what happens here? Peter looks like a moron, and you're using the same, they're still doing, oh man, isn't it great to be a regular? Oh man, I got my coffee, just to have some guys end up coming in to rob the coffee store, because that's all we're going to get, this coffee shop. And then ends up where, hey, give me your money. You get a joke about people using cards and not real money anymore. The guy says, Rassin Frazzin Internet. And then at the end, because Peter and Miles have to suit up, the coffee they just got ended up getting cold. And Peter says, oh my goodness, my coffee's cold. And Miles says, but it should be cold. You ordered an iced latte, which, by the way, wasn't really his regular order, if I remember right. And that's why he wanted to be a regular, so they'd have that ready for him. But Peter says, oh, right, so it's all good. Wah, wah, wah. Like Peter. And then Miles sighs, but not as much as I did. Not as much as I did, because this Greg Weisman, I respect what he has done in the past. But this book is garbage, and you see that if you're going to preview something from what we're getting now, and it's just the same stuff over and over. That joke of being a regular and Peter looking like a moron. It seems like the villain who might be blind. He has a walking stick. He's wearing a hat, so it might be like a blind version of Tom Brevoort. I don't know. But he's into doubles and duos, and I don't know. Of course he would be, because we have Spider-Man in here, so we have to deal with that. So then we get back to Steve Fox and Greg Land on the Kane issue or Kane story. And so you have Kane He's down in the sewers. He's there as Scarlet Spider. He's going to talk about how Ben at points has been Scarlet Spider, but now he's Chasm. Oh my goodness gracious. He looks like he's trying to find Ben. Would have been cooler if he was breaking Ben out. But here is my take on this. And my take is a personal take. I don't know much about Kane. People keep telling me, oh, Kane's pretty cool. When we had the Beyond stuff in the Spider books, a lot of people, oh, I wish it was Kane. I wish Kane was here. So I got, enough interest like, I hope we see Kane sometime. Never really dove into anything back issues or anything with Kane. So when I get this, I'm like, okay, Steve Fox, show me what's so great about Kane. Show everybody, because Kane hasn't been around a lot. I don't think I'm the only one who hasn't had a lot of stuff with Kane. So what you get here is Kane in the sewers. You get more of what he can't do than what he can. I've now looked into things, and you're not even showing really anything cool that Kane's doing. You're just saying, oh, I got Ben Reilly, Scarlet Spider. And then in the meantime, he's chasing down and confronting a vermin who seems to be possessed, who then goes up with some moloids. Like, this isn't stuff that I'm thinking is big. And then at the very end, the reveal of this is that this vermin's being controlled by the eternal Druig, who nobody cares about. So at the end, I'm like, what's happening here? What are you doing? Just show me how cool Kane is, and you did your job. You don't even have to tell me. Just show me how cool he is. You didn't do that. And show me how cool he is by him breaking that out to make it seem like that means something, not let the boy walk. I don't need that. So then at the end, you get Spider Society, which is a story that does tie into the current Edge of Spider-Verse book. And this one actually is by Alex Seguera, Salvador Larroca on art. I didn't get mad about the story, but pretty much in this, it's kind of here. I'm not reading The Edge of Spider-Verse, and this didn't do anything to make me really want to read it, but I didn't think it was horrible. I just don't really know exactly what's going on. But you do get Miguel O'Hara, you get Spider-Man 2099. He's gathering up a team. Spider-Ham is mentioned, at least Peter Parker isn't, because I can't stand it. But you also reveal that this goblin in this, universe here is Gwen Stacy, and she's crazy and kind of looks like the little girl in the Nirvana heart-shaped box video. And that weirds me out, right? So you end up having that, but nothing really got me that excited. And that kind of ties into Madam Web again, but you don't even have at the end where Madam Web finishes this and says, so everybody, what do you think? Pretty crazy year ahead of us, right? Well, here's the books you should be buying. But you don't even get back to it. You're not even pretending that this meta is so weird that you didn't get back to, like, woo, this is going to be a tough year. I better watch that Web of Life, because you know what goes on there? Nothing. You just end up with this is a previews deal. It's supposed to be a commercial, but for what I don't know, it's overpriced. You do get a cool Greg Capullo cover. And then all I could think, that's the preview. Oh my God, that Greg Capullo cover is pretty cool. I can't wait till he's on Wolverine. All right, there you go. And just as an aside, this only involves the one Spider office. It seems it's these, but you didn't get anything with Spider-Boy. You didn't get anything Spear Spider-Man, and you definitely didn't get anything with the Ultimate Spider-Man. This is just these things. And pretty much, like I said, it almost is a blueprint or, a map of what has gone wrong with the Spider books, why people aren't invested in them, why. So you're putting out an issue hoping that people will get involved. And in the meantime, it looks like it's just the wink of, yeah, you guys don't need to read any of this, and it's a bunch of garbage. So that is my review. I am going to give this I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10. The art actually is pretty good on most, if not all, of the stories. So if you're into the art, I think that you can get something out of it, but it's not worth $8 to just page through and avoid all the words. Some of these issues have a lot of words, and you're like, yeah, I don't need that. So let me know what you think. And again, if you are, say, a fan of the Miles Morales book, is this enough for you to get it? And what I'd really love to know, if you are reading Amazing Spider-Man, Miles, Spider-Woman, The Edge of Spider-Verse, and Spectacular Spider-Man, and are looking forward to the Steve Fox, Chasm, Ben Reilly, Kane book, let me know if you got this, that if it was even worth it for you. because I still don't think it is. I still don't think there's anything here that we're not going to get at the point, and nothing really wowed me to say, I got to show somebody. I got to send this page to this person or do it. So I'd love to hear what everybody thinks about it. I'm getting all riled up again, but at least it wasn't an hour. That's that. But again, if you want to listen to us talk about this more in length and lose our minds, go and listen to our, the Marvel Comics podcast. There are links in the description, or you could just look up Weird Science Comics in anywhere you play your podcast, and you'll find us and a lot of other shows as well. And if you're really interested in hearing it, we end up doing this and put up a early access on our Patreon, patreon.com/Weird Science. Again, there's a link in the show notes. That goes up Wednesday night, and you can even go there and get a 7-day free trial to figure out if you want to, join up or help us out, because we do a lot of shows over there, a bunch of Marvel shows right now. Even me and Matt, who usually do the Marvel podcast, we're going through House of M on our events podcast we have each week, all of these sort of things. There's a lot of stuff there, so check it out. But thanks, everybody, and I'll talk to you all later.
Weird Science is the revolution.